10 to 29, 3705 Managua, 3705.
What's that?
Female is hallucinating. Spongerville, ask for a 10.
Hey, stop. Hey, out of the car.
Kroger employee flagged down 2 officers in the parking lot who were there on an unrelated matter about multiple people fleeing from the store with stolen items. One of them was Young. Young was in a vehicle when the officers told her to get out but refused. One of the officers was standing in front of the vehicle when Young put the car in gear and accelerated toward him.
Out of the car. Out of the car.
For what?
Out of the car.
For what?
They said you stole stuff, do not leave. Get out of the car.
Shit, the other
Then get out. No, then get out. Get out of the car.
And she said, "Are you going to shoot me?" And she cruised real slow in that car, turned to the right, away from him, and then he still jumped in front of the car, jumped on the car, and shot her.
Shots fired! Stop the goddamn car!
A grand jury's indictment is merely the first step in the legal process. Officer Grubb is presumed innocent like anyone charged with a crime. Since people who've been indicted may not legally possess a firearm, the indictment against him leaves us with no choice but to immediately begin the disciplinary process.
Well, gee!
Takiya was walking out of this Kroger grocery store with a bag full of stolen booze. However, to her surprise, there were not only 2 cops already in the parking lot, but those officers were standing right behind her car. And they weren't even there for her yet. Because one thing Takiya didn't notice was the Kroger employee running up from behind her. And once that employee yells out to the police that Takiya's stealing, well, things escalate very quickly. That would lead to very permanent consequences. And I'm gonna cover all of it, all the way up until present day. As of last week, there's been a new update in the case. And just like with every story, to better understand what's happening, let's go back to the beginning. 21-year-old mother of 2, Takiya Young, was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time of this incident. Those are her 2 sons, ages 6 and 3. Now, Takiya was also pregnant at the time, 25 weeks pregnant with her 3rd child, and she had just found out she was having a daughter. So I don't know what the fuck she was thinking on August 24th, 2023, when she decided to drive up to the Sunbury Kroger in Westerville, Ohio. Now, from what I read, Takiya was raised by her grandmother. That's her, Nadine Young. Apparently, as Takiya got older, her and her grandmother had a tumultuous relationship. And this is based on Franklin County Municipal Court records. Grandmother Nadine Young had called the Columbus police to her home several times related to Takiya and her behavior. As a matter of fact, Grandmother Nadine had a protection order against Takiya, and she was not supposed to come to her home, which shortly before this incident, Takiya would break that protection order and Grandmother would again call the police. However, before the police could arrive, Takiya did leave, but she was still charged with misdemeanor violation of her protection order, her 2nd charge of this kind. So it sounds like this was a rocky relationship, to say the least. But that's just a little bit of background on Takiya. Let's get to the incident. Just after 6 p.m. on August 24th, 2023, Takiya Young drove up to the Kroger grocery store in Westerville, Ohio, off Sunbury Road. Now, within this Kroger grocery store is a liquor store that has its own cashier, a store within a store. I've actually been to this Kroger's several times. I used to live on that side of the world, and it's pretty nice. I don't know why I felt like I needed to say that, but I digress. Now, the first video I'm gonna show you is from the security footage from inside that liquor store. There's no audio with this video, so I'll kind of give you a play-by-play. This is Takiya entering that liquor store. It's 6:21 at night, and she appears to be by herself. Now, I want you guys to stop and notice one thing right as Takiya's walking in. You see the cashier right by the front door? Look up. There is a split screen TV in the middle of the store showing all of the customers that everything is under video surveillance. You can't miss it. I mean, I think they make this abundantly clear to all of the customers by putting it right out in the open. But here we are. Now, you can see as Takiya enters the store, she goes over to the aisle and walks back right out of the cashier's view. At least she thinks. Now, about 2 minutes after Takiya enters the store at 6:23 p.m., she looks over at the cashier to make sure that she can't see her her, and then Takiya proceeds to pull out another bag outside of the bag that she walked in with. Like a larger beach bag that you put all your stuff in and take to the beach. And just seconds after pulling out that second bag, she conceals her first bottle of alcohol. And I think it's pretty clear where we're going from here. Now, just seconds after concealing that first bottle of alcohol, notice as Takiya turns to the side. Remember I said she was pregnant? She is definitely pregnant. Again, I don't know what she's thinking. By no means am I calling Takiya out. Trust me when I say I was a shithead when I was 21. A shithead. But what I will point out, it's a little bit different when you have another person inside of you that you have to take care of. Now, in that first minute after taking out her second bag, Takiya has already concealed about 5 bottles of alcohol. As she continues to walk around the store, in my opinion, looking very suspicious. Again, notice that TV hanging from the ceiling that displays the security camera footage. I don't know how she missed it, or maybe she just didn't care. Now, in the following several minutes, you can see Takiya would conceal several more bottles of alcohol in her bag, and this is where things get interesting. About a minute and a half after Takiya entered the liquor store, you can see on security camera footage 2 other females enter. These 2 right here. Now, to me, these 3 couldn't look any more obvious if they've tried. You can see the woman on the phone beelines it straight over to Takiya. They have a short conversation. You can see Takiya then walks to the back of the store and crouches behind one of the end caps. She's then seen on security footage here concealing several more bottles of alcohol in her bag. Now, after doing this, Takiya's seen on footage kind of then perusing the aisle to appear like she's shopping, slowly kind of making her way to the front of the store to get in line to pay. But that's not what happens. This is where those other 2 friends come in. You can see while the cashier is checking out another customer, those 2 friends walk up to Takiya and they slowly make their way out of the liquor store. To me, it looks like those 2 friends were there to kind of try and create a diversion. Horrible diversion at that. However, notice that cashier's body language. To me, it looks like that cashier is acknowledging the fact that Takiya just left the store without paying for her merchandise. So she's essentially caught almost immediately. The cashier was probably watching her on that security camera footage the entire time. Notice that TV faces the cashier, and that's on purpose. The cashier can just stay up at her register and see the entire store. So if she looked up in the past 2 minutes, she would have noticed Takiya stealing. Now you can see the security camera footage actually changes to footage within the Kroger supermarket itself. And on this security camera footage, I think it makes it pretty clear that Takiya and those other 2 women were together. I mean, they're leaving the store together. Looks pretty obvious to me. Now, notice here, Takiya actually walks past that last point of sale, which means she is now officially stealing. And taking another close look at the footage, to me, it almost looks like the cashiers up at the U-scan also noticed the 3 women walking out. I don't know if they have radios at this Kroger and the cashier from inside the liquor store radioed up to the front, but to me, it looks like the U-scan cashiers are acknowledging the fact that the women are walking out. Now here is where we switch over to the parking lot security camera footage. As Takiya and those 2 women exit the Kroger grocery store, they notice something in the parking lot that wasn't there when they arrived. The Blendon Township Police Department. Apparently, probably 1 minute after the women entered the Kroger grocery store, a customer in the parking lot had summoned the Blendon Township Police Department because they locked themselves out of their vehicle. I don't know if some call it bad luck, others might call it karma. I just say and to make matters worse, that locked out customer was literally parked right behind Takiya. So those police officers were right where Takiya needed to go. You know the oh shit moment the women had when they first walked out of that Kroger grocery store and looked over and saw the police in the parking lot. Now, if it were me, I would have probably had a heart attack right there. You can see the other 2 women that came in after Takiya walk straight towards the back of the parking lot because they parked in another area. It looks like Takiya almost hesitates for a moment to walk directly towards her car, but after just a couple of seconds, she turns left and starts making her way towards her vehicle, which is that black car in the handicap spot parked right up front. Now, Takiya would make it all the way over to her car and got in, probably thinking she was home free. However, what Takiya didn't notice was there was a Kroger employee running after her into the parking lot. And as soon as that Kroger employee made it within shouting distance, that employee yelled out that Takiya was stealing to the police. And this is where we finally switch over to the police body camera footage. Hold on tight. After that Kroger employee gains the Blendon Township police officer's attention, notice the one officer walks over to Takiya's window and tells her to stop her vehicle. Now, this unnamed police officer would make multiple commands to Takiya to stop her vehicle and get out.
Attention 29, 3705 Managua, 3705. A female is hallucinating. Too much of a loss for attend.
Out of the car. Out of the car. Out of the car.
Medic 7 in service.
Out of the car.
Medic 7.
Just after a couple seconds, the other officer that was on scene, assisting the couple getting into their locked vehicle, walks over to assist the unnamed officer. And we now know that second officer is 29-year-old Connor Grubb. Now, Officer Grubb would walk around to the front of the vehicle in an attempt to assist his fellow officer. And this is where hits the fan. After Officer Grubb positioned himself in the front of Takiya's car, she rolled down her window and proceeded to argue a little bit with that unnamed officer. You can hear the officer telling Takiya that he wanted her to get out of the car because she's suspected of stealing.
Second service 1828.
Get out of the car. Then get out. No. Then get out. Get out of the fucking car. What's that?
Female is hallucinating. Too much of a loss for attend.
Hey. Stop. Hey. Out of the car. 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 They said you stole stuff, do not leave. Get out of the car. Then get out. No. Then get out. Get out of the car.
And Takiya says it was the other two girls who were the ones who did the shoplifting. Now, within seconds, things would escalate pretty quickly. Officer Grubb would wind up pulling his firearm, and not following commands, Takiya would proceed to start turning the wheel on her vehicle to the right. In a split second, Takiya hits the gas. But remember, Officer Grubb is still standing in the front of her car.
Get out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car! Shots fired. Shots fired. Stop the goddamn car! Stop the goddamn car!
Officer Grubb would later state he feared for his life as Takiya pulled forward, and he felt like he had no other choice but to fire one shot into her windshield. Now, tragically for Takiya, that one shot struck her in the chest, penetrating her heart. I mean, you can see almost immediately Takiya would lose control of her vehicle while it slowly crashed into the side of the Kroger supermarket. Now, those officers would proceed to render first aid and call 911 immediately. Fire medics would arrive just moments later and transported Takiya to the local hospital, Mount Carmel St. Anne's. Now, if this were my call and I was the paramedic rolling up on scene, here is what I would do. First things first, making sure the scene is safe and I'm wearing my PPE. Let's start out by saying this would be a very hard call to run. Somebody that's 25 weeks pregnant and shot in the chest would be a very difficult call to work. Walking up and seeing my patient shot in the chest and noticing that she's this far along pregnant, it would immediately heighten the acuity of this run. If it were me, I would pull my backboard out and immediately extract her out of the car onto my stretcher. And the backboard would be used just to simply slide her across. Once the patient was out of the vehicle and onto my stretcher, I would immediately put them in the left laterally recumbent position, which just means laying them on their left side. And the reason you would do this is because laying that pregnant person on their left side takes the pressure off their heart, allowing it to pump blood more efficiently. Now, the distance from this Kroger to St. Anne's Hospital is 4.6 miles, with traffic estimated to be about a 9-minute drive. Now, again, you'll hear me say time and time again, the first three things that you're going to assess is the airway, the breathing, and the circulation. You don't have an open airway, you can't breathe. If you have an open airway and you're not breathing, you need assistance with that. And then going to circulation, you check a pulse. If you don't have a pulse, you also need to assist with that via CPR. Any gunshot wounds to the chest or torso are immediately load and go situations. Especially in patients like Takiya, these people need surgical intervention to stop the bleeding. It's going to be the only thing that saves their lives, so you need to get them to the hospital as quickly as you can. All my interventions are going to be getting done en route to the hospital as my partner drives. I'm going to get the patient's vital signs, get them on the cardiac monitor, and also provide them with high flow oxygen. Any major blood loss equals oxygen loss, so it's always good to put the patient on oxygen in a scenario like this. And then everything really from here just depends on how my patient is presenting. You know, if they're not breathing and they're also pulseless, I'm really not going to be able to move past that. I'm going to be focused on those ABCs all the way to the hospital. However, if that patient is breathing, I'm also going to try and get IV access, preferably 2. Any major trauma where you know there's going to be a lot of volume loss, you want to get 2 large bore IVs, and this is so you can resupply that volume into the person's body. And this is to help support that patient's blood pressure. Now, when it comes to the unborn baby, really the only thing that I'm going to be able to assess is if I hear a fetal heart tone. At 25 weeks, you should be able to hear this. Some ambulances carry a little Doppler. Otherwise, you can put your stethoscope on and auscultate over the abdomen. And this is definitely a vital sign I would check on my way to the hospital. And speaking of being on my way to the hospital, I would immediately be calling that emergency room to tell them what I'm bringing in, so they can have everybody ready to go in the trauma room immediately when you walk in the door. This is a very specific patient who's going to require very specific needs. Now, despite everyone's best efforts, there was nothing they can do. Both Takiya and her unborn daughter would lose their lives at the hospital. Now, like most other officer-involved shootings, both officers involved, the unnamed officer and Officer Connor Grubb, were put on paid administrative leave pending the investigation, which was immediately taken over by the Ohio BCI, or Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation. Now, what was different about this case was almost immediately, body camera footage was already being released to the public. Within a week of the shooting, Blendon Township Police would release multiple body camera footage and security camera footage videos. I do applaud them for their transparency in this case. Now, almost immediately, Takiya's family would come out and demand criminal charges against Officer Grubb.
We've not been aware of what the timeline looks like, what the process looks like. Whether there will be special prosecutors or whether it'll be handled in-house. So there has not been, in my opinion, the proper amount of communication.
Proper communication with the victim's family is guaranteed in Ohio under Marcy's law. Even though the officer who shot Young, identified by Walton as Connor Grubb, has not been charged with a crime, Young is the victim in the context of this investigation.
The one thing that the police department was not releasing was the officers' names involved, citing Marcy's law, which is a law that allows the police department to withhold names of victims of violent crimes. But look at the way the police department was applying Marcy's law.
Immediately after the August 24th shooting, Blendon Township Police classified both officers involved in the encounter as assault victims because one officer's hand was still in the window when Young started driving and her car struck the other officer. The police department withheld both officers' names, citing their rights under Marcy's law.
It's mutually exclusive. If you say that Takiya is a victim, then you're necessarily saying that the officers who killed her are not victims. But if you say that they are victims, that the officers are victims, then you are saying that Takiya is not a victim.
The Blendon Township Police Department was alleging that Officer Connor Grubb and the other unnamed officer were victims themselves of violent crimes. They even went on to say that because the unnamed officer had his arm inside of Takiya's window, he became injured, so he was a victim of a crime, meaning they did not have to release his name. Sounds like some loophole bullshit to me. But moving on, Takiya was laid to rest on September 10th, 2023. You can see her here being carried out in her pink casket. It looked like she had a ton of loved ones. I feel so sorry for her family and her kids. It looks like they wore all pink and it was a beautiful ceremony. Now, that following month on October 4th, the autopsy report was released for Takiya Young and her unborn child.
An autopsy report revealing the exact cause of death for Takiya Young. The pregnant 21-year-old died after being shot by a Blendon Township police officer. According to the Franklin County Coroner's autopsy report, Young died from a gunshot wound to her heart and aorta. The coroner found that she was about 6 months pregnant. The lawyer for Takiya Young's family is calling for accountability tonight. He says the shooting was a criminal act that deserves a criminal indictment. The loss of both Takiya and her unborn daughter's life were ruled a homicide, and the cause of death was that bullet entering Takiya's chest, penetrating her heart and her aorta. Now, following the conclusion of the BCI's investigation in December of 2023, a special prosecutor was appointed to this case, a prosecutor from outside of Franklin County. And this prosecutor's job was to determine if charges were in fact going to be brought against Officer Connor Grubb. The reason the special prosecutor was brought in from Montgomery was the fact
that the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office also represents the local police departments in any litigation. So to keep from appearing like there was a conflict of interest, they called in a prosecutor from Montgomery to determine whether charges were going to be brought against Officer Connor Grubb. Now, that following month in January of 2024, that special prosecutor announced that it was going to present this case to a grand jury to see if they felt like there was enough evidence to press criminal charges against Officer Grubb. Fast forward to April 15th of that same year, and the Ohio Supreme Court orders the Blendon Township Police Department to release the names of the officers involved in this case. Now, I don't know what happened there. To this day, I still couldn't find the name of the other officer involved in this case. But what I do know is on April 13th, 2024, a Franklin County grand jury voted to indict Officer Connor Grubb on 4 counts of murder, as well as 4 counts of felonious assault and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, which I know this can be confusing for some because there were 2 losses of life here. So why so many charges? And the reason for this is a prosecutor can in fact charge with multiple counts of homicide based on varying legal theories surrounding the incident. I get this question a lot. How did somebody get charged with multiple counts of murder for one singular homicide? And that's your answer. Now, Officer Connor Grubb would turn himself in to authorities on that same day, August 13th, 2024. That following day, Officer Connor Grubb would make it to court and be arraigned on all of his charges and was released. Now, almost immediately, the other unnamed officer involved in this incident was allowed to go back to work at the Blendon Township Police Department, while Officer Connor Grubb remained on paid administrative leave. However, the Blendon Township Chief of Police did come out and say after Officer Grubb was criminally charged, his disciplinary process at the police department would begin.
I'm Blendon Township Chief of Police John Belford. Today, the Franklin County Grand Jury indicted Blendon Township Police Officer Connor Grubb following the tragic death of Takiya Young and her unborn child last August. A grand jury's indictment is merely the first step in the legal process, and Officer Grubb is presumed innocent like anyone charged with a crime. Since this tragedy occurred, our goal has been to be as transparent and open as we can with the community. Because we requested an outside investigation, Blendon Township played no role in the investigation, and we continue to believe that you deserve to know as much information as we can provide. We're starting the disciplinary process immediately. After reviewing the facts, the trustees will decide on the necessary disciplinary actions. Ohio law and our contract with the FOP require us to take several administrative steps before we make any decisions. I want to be very clear, we're not passing any judgment on whether Officer Grubb acted properly. We haven't seen the evidence. However, since people who've been indicted may not legally possess a firearm, the indictment against him leaves us with no choice but to immediately begin the disciplinary process. Justice is a process, not a result. Officer Grubb is presumed innocent, and the criminal justice system will take the matter from here.
And this was due to the fact that now that Officer Connor Grubb was charged, he was no longer allowed to carry a firearm, which renders him useless to the Blendon Township Police Department. On September 5th of that same year, the Board of Trustees for Blendon Township would vote to keep Officer Connor Grubb on paid administrative leave. Now, on October 9th, 2024, a trial date was set for Officer Connor Grubb, which was originally set for July 14th, 2025. However, on May 21st, 2025, Officer Connor Grubb's trial would be rescheduled to November 3rd, 2025.
A trial date of November 3rd was also set this morning in court for Connor Grubb. The Blendon Township police officer is charged with shooting and killing Takiya Young back in August of 2023. On the day Young died, she was suspected of stealing alcohol. Young's grandmother was in court this morning. She says the family has struggled since her death.
It's really upsetting for me and the family to know that Connor Grubb is still getting paid administrative leave for killing my granddaughter and her baby. And he got 10 charges. He's never been fired, and it's really hurtful.
Grubb is charged with murder, involuntary manslaughter, and felonious assault.
Now, the following month, on June 18th, 2025, that same Board of Trustees that voted to keep Officer Connor Grubb on paid administrative leave now voted to take him off paid administrative leave. And the Board of Trustees states this was due to budget concerns. And here we are almost to present day. Last week, on June 26, 2025, Officer Connor Grubb's lawyer filed a motion to have his trial moved outside of Franklin County, which they state is due to potential jury bias. And I can see why. Take a look. Since 2019, there have been 4 other police officers besides Officer Connor Grubb charged with murder in Franklin County. We have Columbus police officer Andrew Mitchell, Mitchell, who was charged with involuntary manslaughter and murder for the death of Donna Dalton Castleberry. However, Officer Mitchell was later sentenced to 11 years in prison on an unrelated case for depriving 2 women of their civil rights. Next, we have former Franklin County Deputy Jason Mead, who was charged with and reckless homicide for the 2020 death of Casey Goodson Jr. Next, we have former Columbus police officer Adam Coy, who was charged with murder, felonious assault, and reckless homicide for the December 2020 death of 47-year-old Andre Hill. In 2024, a jury would find Officer Coy guilty on his charges. Former Officer Coy is currently being held in jail with his sentencing scheduled for the end of this month. Next, we have former Columbus police officer Ricky Anderson. Officer Anderson is being charged with murder and reckless homicide for the 2022 death of Donovan Lewis. The next hearing for Officer Anderson is scheduled for July 9th of this year. So you can see why Officer Connor Grubb might feel like there's a little bit of bias in Franklin County. All these other cases are going on around him in the same county, and I bet you he probably feels like he can't get a fair shake. Personally, I don't know if he can or not. We'll have to see if the court does allow Officer Grubb's case to move outside of Franklin County. As of the date of this recording, we're still waiting to hear on the motion whether the judge grants it to move Officer Grubb's court case. There's where we're at, folks. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. My name is Sai, and my channel is Dark Times with Nico and Sai. If you haven't already, please hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps push my content out to a wider audience. And also leave a comment. I try and read and answer as many comments as I can because I want to hear what you guys think about the video and this case. And I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.